Okay, good evening, brothers and sisters. And once again, I want to welcome you to the Way Network and to this wonderful streaming session. I hope we have enjoyed the various sessions that we've been treating over the couple of days in terms of the benefit we derive from the moon and the various moon phases. We've learned so much, and by now I expect that you and I have enough understanding regarding the reasons why most mystic teachers encourage us to do a lot of prayers and directions during the various moon phases. As I told you, the various moon phases that we have exert certain level of energy on our earth space, and to some extent have mass influences on creatures or entities that are within its influences. So it's very important that we understand the moon phases and the kind of influence it exerts on the planet, and how we can take advantage of these moon phases, in as much as we are not supposed to be totally submitted to that kind of act, so it does not become a form of idolatry. We can also take advantage of the energy and the influences it exerts to kind of foster our agenda and our mission. I also talk about the fact that you and I, within us lies the divine sovereignty and the divine energy that makes us more profound and gives us that ability to be able to have control over creation, and that there is nothing within manifest creation that has more power and sovereignty within it than we humans. Where one thing I also talked about is the fact that everything within manifest creation, be it animate or inanimate, have some level of divine sovereignty within it, have some level of divine particles of energy within it, and they come in varying vibrational frequencies, but are in most of the time are in smaller deposits and quantities. But when it comes to we humans, we harnesses the largest deposit of this divine sovereign energy within our being, and that is why we have the ability to create, to innovate, and to invent. Some people may argue that animals do create as well, because birds do their nest and all those things. Yes, but their ability to weave their nest is fundamentally based on pre-programmed instinctive sovereign knowledge, in that all doves build their nest the same way. All how do you call it? Let's say all birds of the same species build their nest the same way. But we humans, we have peculiar individualistic approach to creation. That the way I would want to build my house may be different from the way you want to build a house. The kind of color scheme I would prefer may be different from your color scheme, and that makes ours distinct from the kind of creative abilities that these lower sentient beings possess through the instinctive energy. So ours is more discretional, whilst theirs is more instinctive. So it's more of a prototype. It's more like a stereotype form of creative ability. So it is pre-programmed. So when you see vultures nest are the same. So anybody that knows the shape of a vulture, the shape of the nest of a vulture, when he sees one, he knows that this is a vulture's nest. So anybody that knows the shape or the pattern to which pigeons and doves weave their nest, when he sees one, he knows that this is the nest of a pigeon or a dove. But we humans have varying taste, even within our own household. Individually, we all have varying taste, even taste for food and everything varies. So the deposit of the creative sovereign energy within us is higher and more profound than anything within creation. So basically, once you understand these things of yourself and the world outside of you, understand the dynamics of the world outside of you, you can take advantage of both to navigate your way through this life, to be able to fulfill your dreams, live a life of tranquility and contentment, and ultimately exit. Unfortunately, the exit is going to take place, we call death, but in what state do we exit? And that is the big issue. In what state do we exit? Do we exit as ignorant souls, or we exit as enlightened souls? So the state of your consciousness at the time of your exit is the most important thing. And as things stand, and looking at how our world is going, you notice that a lot of people are exiting at the point of ignorance and not at the point of enlightenment. And for this reason, I have decided to treat the topic enlightenment. So in all this knowledge, in all these endeavors, in all these activities, in all these mystical exercises, in all these experiences, in all this wealth creation, in all this being a multi-billionaire, in all this the quest for material sensual gratification, and all this human activity, there's one key factor which is inevitable, and that is the point of exit. We all are going to exit. The question is, in which state of awareness are you going to exit? Are you going to exit in the state of ignorance, or you are going to exit in the states of awakenness? Does the knowledge that you pursue and you accumulate brings you to the point of enlightenment, or keeps you in the state of ignorance? Because the kind of experiences you go through in life, the kind of knowledge you acquire, the kind of things you do, the kind of encounters you have, the kind of relationship you have, the kind of engagements you find yourself in, is either informing you to become enlightened or keeping you in a state of ignorance. And at a certain point, the inevitable would naturally occur. And this inevitable occurrence is our point of exit that we call death. And that is why today I want us to talk about enlightenment, so that we have full understanding of what truly enlightenment is, and probably how we can work towards the realization of this state of awareness, so at the time of our exit, irrespective of all our material acquisition, irrespective of all the toils and the turmoils and then the ups and downs and the struggles of life, we don't also exit as ignorant souls who have not been able to fulfill the quest of their incarnation. Because a lot of people, when I walk around, when I watch news, I follow social media, I just observe majority and bunch of people exiting at the point of ignorance. And it's a very, very pathetic situation that humanity finds itself. That in all the struggles we come to this world to struggle, in all the quest, in all the ups and downs, in all the frustrations and depressions and stress and anxieties we go through in life, we are unable to learn anything that would enhance our soul's intelligence. We are unable to acquire any knowledge that will fulfill the quest of our soul's incarnation into this present lifetime, that we will still exit this world in the state of ignorance. It's the most pathetic thing that could ever happen to any human existence. So we need to understand what truly enlightenment is. And I believe that probably if you and I are able to understand the real concept of enlightenment and what truly enlightenment is, it may probably guide and aid our activities and actions and our pursuits in life, so as at least our soul will not be devoid of the opportunity of enhancing a state of awareness to be able to exit this physical frame structure with a state of enlightenment, or in the state of enlightenment. So today we are looking at enlightenment. So the first question we would ask ourselves to be able to proceed with this topic and come to full understanding is, what is enlightenment? What is enlightenment? I presume and know and anticipate that by now you have heard the word enlightenment. What, and from the social media, from different mystic teachers, from different occult societies, from different cult society, from the Masonic order, from this, we all talk about enlightenment. So by now you are familiar with the word enlightenment. But what truly is enlightenment? Is what we are here today to discuss in this session. I want to remind you of our upcoming master classes that will be coming up very soon. Do prepare yourself to join the master classes, because in the master class we'll be learning much more detailed, practically oriented, various sensitive subjects of human endeavors, and we are going to acquire hands-on practical approach to deal with certain things and to deal with certain information, and how we can practically implement them in our lives for a desirable results. So don't forget, stay in touch and watch out for the master classes that will be coming on very, very, very soon. Also, I want to inform you that by the close of this month, we are going to open up our portal for subscription for the personality development class training. I do well appreciate and understand the fact that there are a lot of people who applied for the previous sessions, but due to the nature of, when you begin something, it always comes with a lot of challenges, and as the challenges unfolds, you find antidotes and remedies to handle it in a more proper, prudent, and a more professional way. So in our previous portal that we opened for people's subscription, because we were using the same number for all other applications or subscriptions, then it became difficult that the whole thing gets jumped up, so we missed out on certain people's applications, because the same number is receiving WhatsApp for personal activities, the same number is receiving WhatsApp for personality to join the website. People are sending their personal information. We're using the same thing to communicate, regular communication for people who want to do inquiries. So the message comes in bulk and a lot, and that affected our ability to censor and to be able to sieve out those who were subscribing for the personality development plan. So I sincerely apologize for all those that couldn't receive any response from us. It's just we're overwhelmed with the number of messages we receive, not only for the subscription for personality development training, but from other independent sources who request for services in one way or the other. So that is the cause. So by the close of this month, we will designate one number, and that number is only for those who are subscribing for the training session. So that number, so we will rest assured that once we send our interest for subscription, we would be attending to our message. The organization will not lose out on the message, because that number will be only designated for the personality development subscription portal. So please take note about that. So to all those who should express interest to participate in it, and then we couldn't reach out to you in one way or the other, this were the challenges that we faced, and we have adopted this strategy to this time around deal with the situation, so that we will be able to access all the applications for subscriptions that are sent, so we can respond to all of them adequately and in time. So we are, as I said, we're going to set a different number aside or apart for the subscription for the training session. So thank you very much for your patience and consideration. So what is enlightenment? You've always heard people talk about you have to be enlightened, you have to be awakened, you have to be this. What is truly enlightenment? Enlightenment simply means, in the very layman's language, is for one to attain the light. That is enlightenment. In a very simple understand, to have knowledge of something, or to become aware of something, or to become educated or schooled with regards to some subject or some object, then you are considered as an enlightened person in that subject area or regarding that particular object. So enlightenment simply means to have adequate knowledge, and knowledge is synonymous to light. So when you have light, you have knowledge, and then you become enlightened. So basically, from the material point of view, this is what enlightenment is, and this sets the premise on which you can build to get into what kind of enlightenment we will need in order to exit this physical reality. So as I said, enlightenment is basically to have knowledge, and knowledge is light. So it simply means that to have knowledge of the light. And once you can have knowledge of the light, be it what kind of knowledge of the light, then you become enlightened. Now, when we come to the non-physical aspect, we would define enlightenment is the state of attaining higher levels of consciousness, which of course consciousness is also a form of awareness. So in the realms of the invisibility, or you may call it in the realms of spirituality, enlightenment is being able to attain a higher state of consciousness, which of course consciousness still operates within the realms of limits. So when you get to that level where you have enormous knowledge of the various realms of limit that constitute existence, then it is also regarded as enlightenment. So enlightenment can also be defined as attaining higher state of consciousness. Also, enlightenment can also be defined as having union with the divine light. It's also classified as enlightenment. Having union with the divine light is also classified as an enlightenment. So fundamentally, you will notice that enlightenment comes in different shades and different forms and takes different levels of knowledge. That is what enlightenment is. So anything you have enough knowledge of, you are considered as enlightened in that area. So if you have enough knowledge in law, you can be considered as an enlightened lawyer. If you have enough knowledge in banking, you can be considered as an enlightened banker. If you have enough higher knowledge in, let's say, medicine, then you can be considered as an enlightened medical professional. So any field of study or any field of human endeavor that you have higher knowledge, because we talk about higher state of consciousness, you have higher knowledge or higher state of knowledge in that particular endeavor or field, you then can be classified or categorized as an enlightened person in that area of speciality. Then you become an authority in that area. So you then know that there are different kinds of enlightenment in this material dimension. In this our physical existence, there are different kinds of enlightenment. So when you talk about one being enlightened, I presume that we should know what kind of enlightenment people are talking about. Because it is not just about using the word enlightenment, but it's about knowing what kind of enlightenment they are referring to. One can be enlightened in the deific worship. When it comes to the worship of deities, one can be enlightened in that area. When it comes to the worship of entities, one can be enlightened in that area. When it comes to pouring libation, the one who has a higher state of knowledge in that area of pouring libation is considered an enlightened person in that area. When it comes to invocation of spirits and entities, one who have enough knowledge and skill in that area of invocation, the person is considered as an enlightened person in that area. So in different area of activity, in different area of human endeavor, one may attain enlightenment in the various areas that a person has gained enough knowledge and higher awareness and speciality. But the question is, what is true enlightenment? Because these are frivolous use of the word enlightenment or careless use of the word enlightenment. But when we talk about true enlightenment, what is true enlightenment? And that true enlightenment is the state we need to attain before we exit this planet Earth dimension. And if you're unable to attain this state of true enlightenment, it's a pity when you exit, because all the voyage of your life on earth has been just a total waste of time and energy. So one needs to understand what true enlightenment is. The true enlightenment is that enlightenment which is required, which is necessary for our exit in order to attain higher levels of awareness and consciousness within the non-physical reality. So when we talk about true enlightenment, one, we have material enlightenment. Enlightenment within the material dimension. So I'll give you a lot of examples of enlightenment within the material dimension, or what we may call physical enlightenment. So there are people who are professor in medicine, professor in gynecology, professor in physics, professor in biology. These are enlightened people in this field of speciality. These are what we call physical enlightenment. But this enlightenment has no bearing on the soul. There are enlightenment which are attained at the state of intellectualism, which this kind of knowledge dissipates at the time of your exit, we call death. All this intellectual knowledge we acquire at the time of our death, it becomes absolutely nothing, because these are knowledge which is meant for this our material dimension and has absolutely nothing to do with the non-physical reality of where we are exiting to. So it doesn't matter what knowledge you acquire to be enlightened in any field of material speciality, that knowledge at the time of your exit is absolutely not needed. So it will dissipate into oblivion, it will dissipate into nothingness. It's rather unfortunate, but this is the truth. It's like at the time you go to sleep, all the knowledge that you have, be it you have emeritus in physics, you are professor in gynecology, you are professor in pharmacology, you are professor in nanodynamics, you are a professor in biotechnology, you are a professor in arts, you are a professor in designing, you are a professor in literature, you are a professor in editing. No matter what knowledge you have, at the time you go to sleep, which is a form of how do I put it? A form of artificial death. At the time you go to sleep, where you lose your consciousness, you lose your intellectual awareness, all that acquisition of that material knowledge goes into oblivion. It goes to nothing. It dissipates. At the time you sleep, you are not aware that you are a professor. All the knowledge about professorship that you have acquired in other physics, biology, chemistry, medicine, whatever it is non-existent. This is what I'm trying to explain to you. So when you're going to the state of perpetual death, okay, or the perpetual sleep, that material enlightenment that you acquired, irrespective of its level of attainment, dissipate into oblivion, and it has no bearing whatsoever in that state of perpetual sleep when it comes to the soul, which we call death. That is not to say it is unnecessary or it is irrelevant to acquire material enlightenment in different fields of speciality. It is very, very necessary as long as we live in this material dimension. But the fact I want to set straight and the truth I want to establish is that we must be conscious and aware of the kind of enlightenment we are having and where its limits ends. And I am saying that it is very necessary to acquire material enlightenment and material knowledge of physical enlightenment in different fields of speciality and different fields of endeavors, but know that it only ends with the material world. It doesn't transcend the material world. And it is for this reason that people might have attained different levels of academic credentials, making them authorities and enlightened in different fields of speciality, but they are struck by certain things which are invisible, and with all their emeritus professorship and everything, they can never solve that problem. They may probably go to a young guy who may not even have set his foot in college, but have attained maybe probably metaphysical or mystical enlightenment, and he is the one to solve that problem for the one who have attained different professorship and degrees and credentials in the material space. So the least of all the enlightenment, or the least of all the attainment within the realms of enlightenment, is the material knowledge or the material enlightenment. It's the most dense knowledge, is the most dense state of enlightenment. It is the most dense state of awakening of consciousness within the state of intellectualism. It is very rigid and very robotic, very mechanical. That is the material knowledge. It is the least of all the states of enlightenment. But it is very relevant for this our material life, because without it too, you'll be deficient in this material life. But I am saying that in the ladder of the various states of enlightenment, the material enlightenment is the least, because it is the base, because it is mechanical and very tangible. Having talked about the material or physical enlightenment, we now proceed to the next phase of enlightenment, which is the metaphysical enlightenment. Which is the metaphysical enlightenment? Which is the metaphysical enlightenment? And this metaphysical enlightenment, unlike the physical enlightenment, it is a little bit higher, or it is higher than the physical enlightenment. And that deals with higher dimensions of the human mental faculties, or the state of mind. That is the metaphysical enlightenment. It's a very fine enlightenment compared to the physical enlightenment, yet it's also within the realms of limits and does not literally liberate the soul. Now, he who have attained metaphysical enlightenment and he who have attained physical enlightenment, the one with metaphysical enlightenment is higher and superior to the one with physical or material enlightenment. Because the one with the metaphysical enlightenment have higher understanding of the dynamics of the way things work in this material space at a more subtle level compared to the one who have the material knowledge or material enlightenment. Because those with the material enlightenment deals with the more tangible and the more rigid aspect of the material essence. And that is more, has to do with empirical evidences of events as they unfold. And those are the natural sciences. And then we have the metaphysical sciences, which transcends beyond the natural sciences. Because the knowledge of the metaphysical sciences is higher than that of the natural science. Most of the things that we spend most of our time on and resources on are the natural sciences, because they are the obvious, tangible, mechanical form of knowledge, which is the most rigid and the most dense form of knowledge. But it attracts most of our attention because the senses identify with them. But it's the most inferior forms of knowledge. So for those who are able to engage in inventions in the area of the sciences are those who acquire the metaphysical sciences, who become enlightened in the metaphysics of science. And that is why you could have two doctors, two engineers. One would invent and the other cannot invent. It is because one has a metaphysical knowledge and the other has a natural knowledge of the sciences. So these are all forms of enlightenment at different dimensions of reality. Because we must understand that knowledge comes in spheres and comes in dimensions. And the higher you go, the more subtle that knowledge or intelligence become. Likewise, enlightenment also comes in different spheres and different dimensions depending on your level of awakening, your state of awakening and consciousness. Now, when we go past the physical enlightenment and then the metaphysical enlightenment, then we are coming now to talk about what we call the mystical enlightenment. So now you are getting to know that there are different kinds of enlightenment. Because when you go to the church, they talk about enlightenment. When you go to the Masonic order, they talk about enlightenment. When we go to the Illuminatis, they talk about enlightenment. But the question is that what kind of enlightenment are they talking about? And that is why I seek to make you understand that there are different levels of enlightenment, and do not be fooled and be not be deceived. That the fact that the word enlightenment is used does not necessarily mean that it is the enlightenment that can give an exit and liberation to your essence.